Okay, finally got everything working. Woo! Y'all have no idea behind the scenes what's going on here. Also, if it sounds like a jet engine is going on in the background, that's really just my processing unit trying to figure things out. Oh god, excuse me. Got a bit sniffly and sneezy there. But it is what it is. I usually try to do something funny, but let's not do that today. Oof. Oof. Sorry, y'all. I crashed on my couch back there and ended up just sort of not watching the time very much. So, yeah, excuse me. But anyway, welcome back to the Bite the Robot show so soon. Last week we were pretty productive just because, I had some time off from my 9 to 5. So I was able to actually do some stuff for you. But now we go back to our regularly scheduled programming. Sorry, I thought something else broke for a second. All right. So, today I have another creepypasta twofer for you. We're going to be doing Jeff the Killer and Abandoned by Disney. Both of these are dog water. they're both actually very stupid and very silly. You will see why, but my goodness, these are classics. And I'm not going to lie, Jeff the Killer I always thought was goofy, but Abandoned by Disney, until I actually gained an appreciation for good stories, I actually used to think that one was a little bit on the actually creepy side. And then I read it again when I was older and realized that it's actually stupid. It's goof material. And it's not just because there's Goofy in it. In fact, there is no Goofy at all. The story would be vastly improved if there was Goofy, but I won't spoil nothing for you. So, why don't we just jump right in? Let me also just blot myself out. Jeez. All right. Let's see here. Mm-hmm. All right. I think I'm comfy. I think I'm cozy. For some reason, the window's a lot bigger than it usually is. Let me, oh god, I'm breaking things again. Sorry, just on a whim, I tend to break the fabric of space and time. That's just how I am, though. Bleh. Breg. I broke it again. I break everything here on the Bite the Robot show. Don't worry about it. Don't you worry about it. It's just how we do. There it is. There we go. Now we look fancy. Now we look styling. One day I'll have this down to a science. Today is not that day. All right, let's go. Enough stalling. Enough yapping. I yapped enough yesterday. Okay, first, Jeff the Killer. This is a different one that's uploaded to Wattpad by Crimson Chaos. Thank you for being a lovely internet historian and preserving the text as it originally was. You'd be surprised how hard it is to find the original version of the story. because it got taken. I can't find it. So literally, thank you, Crimson Chaos 13, for preserving this wonderful trash for us to read today. All right. So here we go. Excerpt from a local newspaper. Ominous unknown killer is still at large. After weeks of unexplained murders, the ominous unknown killer is still on the rise. After little evidence has been found, a young boy states that he survived one of the killer's attacks and bravely tells his story.
I had a bad dream, and I woke up in the middle of the night,
says the boy.
I saw that for some reason the window was open, and even though I remember it being closed before I went to bed, I got up and shut it once more. Afterwards, I simply crawled under my covers and tried to get back to sleep. That's when I had a strange feeling, like someone was watching me. I looked up and nearly jumped out of my bed. There, in the little ray of light, illuminating from between my curtains, were a pair of 2 eyes. These weren't regular eyes. They were dark, ominous eyes. They were bordered in black and just plain out terrified me. That's when I saw his mouth, a long, horrendous smile that made every hair on my body stand up. The figure stood there, watching me. Finally, after what seemed like forever, he said it. A simple phrase, but said in a way that only a madman could speak. He said, "Go to sleep." I let out a scream. That's when it hit me.
Oh, wait, hang on. I read that incorrectly. I'll start over.
I let out a scream. That's what sent him at me. He pulled up a knife, aiming at my heart. He jumped up on my bed. I fought him back. I kicked, I punched, I rolled around, trying to knock him off me. That's when my dad busted in. The man drew an...
Oh, wait. I'll save it.
The man threw the knife. It went into my dad's shoulder. The man probably would have finished him off if one of the neighbors hadn't alerted the police. They drove into the parking lot and ran towards the door. The man turned and ran down the hallway. I heard a smash like glass breaking, and as I came out of my room, I saw the window that was pointing towards the back of my house was broken. I looked out to see him vanish into the distance. I could tell you one thing. I will never forget that face, those cold, evil eyes, and that psychotic smile. They will never leave my head.
Just so you know what we're talking about here. I ruined my internet search history for you guys, by the way. Yeah, they're talking about this picture. There you go. This is the reason why I could never take this story seriously. This is doofus material right here. Okay. I'll save it to the end. Police are still on the look for this man. If you see anyone that fits the description in this story, please contact your local police department. Jeff and his family had just moved into a new neighborhood. His dad had gotten a promotion at work, and they thought it would be best to live in one of those, quote, fancy, end quote, neighborhoods. Jeff and his brother Lou couldn't complain, though. A new, better house. What was not to love? As they were getting unpacked, one of their neighbors came by.
Hello,
she said.
I'm Barbara. I live across the street from you. Well, I just wanted to introduce myself and introduce my son.
She turns around and calls her son over.
Billy, these are our new neighbors.
Billy said hi and ran back into play in his yard. Well, said Jeff's mom, I'm Margaret, and this is my husband Peter, and my 2 sons, Jeff and Lou. They introduced themselves, and then Barbara invited them to her son's birthday. Jeff and his brother were about to object when their mother said they would love to. Jeff and his family are done packing. Jeff went up to his room. Be prepared to see a lot of... this is just a quick pause. Yeah. Quick pause, but be prepared for shifts intense because this story doesn't know what tense it wants to be in. Whew. Yeah, just be ready for that. It's kind of dumb, but we are here now. Okay. Where was I? Yeah.
Ma'am, why did you invite us to Sam Kate's party? If you haven't noticed, I'm not some dumb kid.
Jeffe, said his mother. We just moved here and we should get to know. I'm sorry, I got thrown by the fact that I'm trying to do a southern accent. Oh no. All right. Jeffe, said his mother, we just moved here. We should show that we want to spend some time with our new neighbors. Now we're going to that party and that's final. Jeff started to talk, but stopped himself, knowing that he couldn't do anything. Whenever his mom said something, it was final. He walked up to his room and plopped down onto his bed. He sat there looking at his ceiling when suddenly he got a weird feeling. Not so much a pain, but a weird feeling. He dismissed it as just some random feeling. He heard his mother call him down to get his stuff, and he walked down to get it. The next day, Jeff walked downstairs to get breakfast and got ready for school. As he sat there eating his breakfast, he once again got that feeling. This time it was stronger. It gave him a tugging pain, but he once again dismissed it. And as he and Lou finished breakfast, they walked down to the bus stop. They sat there waiting for the bus, and then all of a sudden, some kid on a skateboard jumped over them, only inches above their laps. They both jumped in surprise.
Hey, what the hell?
The kid landed and turned back to them. He kicked his skateboard up and caught it with his hands. The kid seems to be about 12, 1 year younger than Jeff. He wears an Aeropostale shirt and ripped blue jeans. Well, looks like we got some new meat. Suddenly, 2 other kids appeared. One was super skinny and the other one was huge. Well, since you're new here, I'd like to introduce ourselves. Over there is Keith. Jeff and Lou looked over at the skinny kid. He had a dopey face that you would expect a sidekick to have. And he's Troy. They looked over at the fat kid. Talk about a tub of lard. This kid looked like he hadn't exercised since he was crawling. I love the writing in this story. Not for the reason that the author wants, but I love it. And I, said the first kid, I'm Randy. Giggity. Now, for all the kids in this neighborhood, there is a small price for bus fare if you catch my drift. Lou stood up, ready to punch the lights out of the kids. Wait, that's a hard sentence to read. Lou stood up, ready to punch the lights out of the kid's eyes when one of his friends pulled a knife on him. Tusk, tusk, tusk. I had hoped you would be more cooperative, but it seems we must do this the hard way. The kid walked up to Lou and took his wallet out of his pocket. Jeff got that feeling again. When I get that feeling, I won't. Okay, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to get copyrighted. I'll get hit with copyright if I do that. Now it was truly strong. A burning sensation. He stood up, but Lou gestured for him to sit down. Oh, wait. But Lou gestured him to sit down. Jeff ignored him and walked up to the kid.
Listen here, you little punk. Get back my bro's wallet or else.
Randy put the wallet in his pocket and pulled out his own knife. Oh, and what will you do? Just as he finished the sentence, Jeff popped the kid in the nose. As Randy reached for his face, Jeff grabbed the kid's wrist and broke it. Randy screamed and Jeff grabbed the knife from his hand. Troy and Keith rushed Jeff, but Jeff was too quick. He threw Randy to the ground. Keith lashed out at him, but Jeff ducked and stabbed him in the arm. Keith dropped his knife and fell to the ground, screaming. Troy rushed him too, but Jeff didn't even need the knife. He just punched Troy straight in the stomach. Troy went down. As he fell, he puked all over. Lou could do nothing but look in amazement at Jeff. Jeff? How'd you... I forgot Lou's voice, so it's just going to be normal. That was all he said. They saw the bus coming and knew they'd be blamed for the whole thing, so they started running as fast as they could. As they ran, they looked back and saw the bus driver rushing over to Randy and the others. As Jeff and Lou made it to school, they didn't dare tell what happened. All they did was sit and listen. Lou just thought that... Oh my God. Lou just thought of that as his brother beating up a few kids. But Jeff knew it was more. It was something scary. Are you guys scared yet? I'm spooked, y'all. As he got that feeling... And as he got that feeling, he felt how powerful it was. The urge to just hurt someone. Dun, dun, dun. He didn't like how it sounded, but he couldn't help feeling happy. He felt that strange feeling go away and stay away for the entire day of school, even as he walked home due to the whole thing near the bus stop. And now he probably wouldn't be taking the bus anymore. You know, it's okay. There's a blue hedgehog in that bus, so you probably don't want to take it anymore either. Anyway, he felt happy. When he got home, his parents asked him how his day was, and he said in a somewhat ominous voice, "It was a wonderful day." The next morning, he heard a knock at his front door. He walked down to find 2 police officers at the door, his mother looking back at him with an angry look. "Jeff, these officers tell me that you attacked 3 kids, that it wasn't just regular fighting, and that they were stabbed. Stabbed, son." Jeff's gaze fell to the floor, showing his mother that it was true. "Ma'am, they were the ones who put the knives on me and Lou." "Son, we found 3 kids, 2 stabbed, 1 having a bruise on his stomach, and we have witnesses proving that you fled the scene. Now, what does that tell us?" Jeff knew it was no use. He could only say him and Lou had been attacked, but then there was no proof of it. It was not them who attacked first. They couldn't say that they weren't fleeing, because truth be told, they were. So Jeff couldn't defend himself or Lou. "Son, call down your brother." Jeff couldn't do it, since it was him who beat up all the kids. "Sir, it was me. I was the one who beat up all those kids." Wait, let me try that again. "Sir, it was me. I was the one who beat up the kids. Lou tried to hold me back, but he couldn't stop me." The cop looked at his partner, and they both nod. "Well, kid, looks like a year in juvie, ... "Wait," says Lou. They all looked up to see him holding a knife. The officers pulled their guns and locked them on Lou. "It was me. I beat up those little punks. Have the marks to prove it." He lifted up his sleeves to reveal cuts and bruises if he was in a struggle. "Son, just put the knife down," said the officer. Lou held up the knife and dropped it on the ground. He put his hands up and walked over to the cops. "No, Lou, it was me. I did it." Jeff had tears running down his face. "Poor bro. Trying to take the blame for what I did. Well, take me away." I'll save it for the end. The police led Lou out to the patrol car. "You tell him it was me. Tell him. I was the one who beat up those kids." Jeff's mother put her hands on his shoulders. "Jeff, please. You don't have to lie. We know it was Lou. You can stop." Jeff watched helplessly as the cop speeds off with Lou inside. A few minutes later, Jeff's dad pulled into the driveway, seeing Jeff's face and knowing something was wrong. Son? Son, what is it? Jeff couldn't answer. His vocal cords were strained from crying and sounding like Eric Cartman. Instead, Jeff's mother walked his father inside to break the bad news to him as Weff. Oh, I'm entertaining myself. Oh God, where was I? Yeah, there he is. Jeff's mother walked his father inside to break the bad news to him as Jeff wept in the driveway. After about an hour or so, Jeff walked back into the house, seeing that his parents were both shocked, sad, and disappointed. He couldn't look at them. He couldn't see how they thought of Lou when it was his fault. He just went to sleep. Roll credits. We said the thing, guys. We said the thing. Roll credits. Trying to get the whole thing off of his mind. 2 days went by with no word from Lou at JDC. No friends to hang out with. Nothing but sadness and guilt. That is until Saturday, when Jeff is woken up by his mother with a happy, sunshiny face.
Jeff, it's the day,
she said as she opened up the curtains and let light flood into his room.
What's today?
Asked Jeff as he stirs awake. Why,
it's Billy's party.
He was now fully awake.
You're joking, right? You don't expect me to go to some kid's party after ...
There was a long pause.
Jeff, we both know what happened. I think this party could be just the thing that brightens up the past days. Now get dressed.
Jeff's mother walked out of the room and went downstairs to get ready herself. He fought himself to get up. He pulled out a random shirt and a pair of jeans and walked down the stairs. He saw his mother and father all dressed up, his mother in a dress and his father in a suit. He thought, why would they ever wear such fancy clothes to a kid's party? You know, valid question. It's probably a swingers party and the kids have to go outside. Anyway, I'm sorry, I stole that joke from someone else. But it was too good not to make.
Son,
is that all you're going to wear? Said Jeff's mom.
Better than wearing too much,
he said. His mother pushed down the feeling to yell at him and hit it with a smile.
Now, Jeff.
Oh, wait, no, this is his dad. Now, Jeff, we may be overdressed, but this is how you go if you want to make an impression, said his father. Jeff grunted and went back up to his room.
I don't have any fancy clothes,
he yelled down the stairs.
Just pick out something,
called his mother. He looked around in his closet for what they would call fancy. He found a pair of black dress pants he had for special occasions and an undershirt. He couldn't find a shirt to go with it, though. He looked around and only found striped and patterned shirts, none of which go with dress pants. Finally, he found a white hoodie and put it on. You're wearing that? They both said. His mother looked at her watch.
Oh, no time to change. Let's just go.
Wait, why is she turning British?
Oh, no time to change. Let's just go.
She said as she herded Jeff and his father out of the door. They crossed the street over to Barbara and Billy's house. They knocked on the door and it appeared that... Why is that hard to read too? They crossed the street over to Barbara and Billy's house. They knocked on the door and at it appeared that Barbara, just like his parents, way overdressed. As they walked inside, all Jeff could see was adults, no kids.
The kids are out in the yard. Jeff, how about you go and meet some of them?
Said Barbara. Jeff walked outside to a yard full of kids. They were running around in weird cowboy costumes and shooting each other with plastic guns. You might as well be standing in a Toys R Us. How many of you remember that? 'Cause I do. I'm not an old robot at all. What are you talking about? All right. He might as well be standing in a Toys R Us. Suddenly, a kid came up to him and handed him a toy gun and a hat. Hey, wanna play? He said.
Yeah, no, kid, I'm way too old for that. I'm way too old for this stuff.
The kid looked at him with that weird puppy dog face. Please, said the kid.
Fine,
said Jeff. He put on the hat and started to pretend shoot at the kids. At first, he thought it was totally ridiculous. But then he started to actually have fun. It might have been super cool, but it was the first time he had done something that took his mind off Lou. So he played with the kids for a while until he heard a noise. A weird, rolling noise. Then it hit him. Randy, Troy, and Keith all jumped over the fence on their skateboards. Jeff dropped his fake gun and ripped off the hat. Randy looked at Jeff with a burning hatred. Hello? Jeff, is it? He said. We have some unfinished business. Jeff saw his bruised nose.
I think we're even. I beat the crap out of you and you get my brother sent to JDC.
Randy got an angry look in his eyes. Oh no, I don't go for even. I go for winning. You may have kicked our asses that one day, but not today. God. As he said that, Randy rushed at Jeff. They both fell to the ground. Randy punched Jeff in the nose, and Jeff grabbed him by the ears and head-butted him. Jeff pushed Randy off him, and both rose to their feet. Kids were screaming. Parents were running out of the house. Troy and Keith both pulled guns out of their pockets. Oh, man. I'd call this part ridiculous if it wasn't true. No one interrupts or guts will fly, they said. Randy pulled a knife on Jeff and stabbed it into his shoulder. Jeff screamed and fell to his knees. Randy started kicking him in the face. After 3 kicks, Jeff grabs his foot and twists it, causing Randy to fall to the ground. Jeff stood up and walked towards the back door. Troy grabbed him. Need some help? He picks up Jeff by the back of the collar and throws him through the patio door. As Jeff tries to stand, he is kicked down to the ground. Randy repeatedly starts kicking Jeff until he starts to cough up blood. Come on, Jeff, fight me. He picks Jeff up and throws him into the kitchen. Randy sees the bottle of vodka on the counter and smashes the glass over Jeff's head. Fight! He throws Jeff back into the living room. Come on, Jeff, look at me. Jeff glances up, his face riddled with blood. I was the one who got your brother sent to JDC, and now you're just gonna sit here and let him rot in there for a whole year. You should be ashamed. Jeff starts to get up. Oh, finally, you stand and fight. Why don't you ever look at me during? Not really. Nope. We're not making that joke. Except I just did. Oh, finally, you stand and fight. Jeff is now to his feet, blood and vodka on his face. Once again, he gets that strange feeling. The one in which he hasn't felt for a while. Finally, he's up, says Randy as he runs at Jeff. That's when it happens. Something inside Jeff snaps. His psyche is destroyed. All rational thinking is gone. All he can do is kill. He grabs Randy and pile drives him to the ground. He gets on top of him and punches him straight in the heart. The punch causes Randy's heart to stop. As Randy gasps for breath, Jeff hammers down on him, punch after punch. Blood gushes from Randy's body until he takes one final breath and dies. Edgy. I bet most kids in their teens wish they could do that. Anyway, where was I? Everyone is looking at Jeff now. The parents, the prying kids, the crying kids, even Troy and Keith. Although they easily break from their gaze and point their guns at Jeff, Jeff sees the guns trained on him and runs for the stairs. As he runs, Troy and Keith let out fire on him, each shot missing. Jeff runs up the stairs. He hears Troy and Keith follow up behind. As they let out their final rounds of bullets, Jeff ducks into the bathroom. He grabs the towel rack and rips it off the wall. Troy and Keith race in, knives ready. Knives up. That's a funny... That's an interesting British movie if you don't know the joke. Anyway, knives ready. Troy swings his knife at Jeff, who backs away and bangs the towel rack into Troy's face. Troy goes down hard now. Troy goes down hard, and now all that's left is Keith. He is more agile than Troy, though, and ducks when Jeff swings the towel rack. He dropped the knife and grabbed Jeff by the neck. He pushed him into the wall. A thing of bleach fell on top of him from the top shelf. It burnt both of them, and they both started to scream. Jeff wiped his eyes as best he could, and he pulled back the towel rack and swung it straight into Keith's head. As he lay there, bleeding to death, he let out an ominous smile.
"What's so funny?"
asked Jeff. Keith pulled out a lighter and switched it on. "What's funny," he said, "is that you're covered in bleach and alcohol." Jeff's eyes widened as Keith threw the lighter at him, neglecting the fact that it doesn't stay lit unless you hold your thumb on it. Never mind. I'm sorry. Anyway, as soon as the flame made contact with him, the flames ignited the alcohol in the vodka. While the alcohol burned him, the bleach bleached his skin. Jeff let out a terrible screech as he caught on fire. He tried to roll out the fire, but it was no use. The alcohol had made him a walking inferno. He ran down the hall and fell down the stairs. Everybody started screaming as they saw Jeff, now a man on fire, even though he's 12. Dropped to the ground, nearly dead. The last thing Jeff saw was his mother and the other parents trying to extinguish the flame, when they should have also called the police department for kids having guns. But oh well. That's when he passed out. When Jeff woke, he had a cast wrapped around his face. He couldn't see anything, but felt a cast on... Excuse me. He couldn't see anything, but he felt a cast on his shoulder and stitches all over his body. He tried to stand up, but he realized that there was some tube in his arm. When he tried to get up, it fell out, and a nurse rushed in. "I don't think you could get out of bed just yet," she said as she put him back into his bed and reinserted the tube. Jeff sat there with no vision, no idea of what his surroundings were. Finally, after hours, he heard his mother. "Honey, are you okay?" she asked. Jeff couldn't... Wait, let me try that again. "Honey, are you okay?" she asked. Jeff couldn't answer, though. His face was covered, and he was unable to speak. "Oh, honey, I have great news. After all the witnesses told the police that Randy confessed to trying to attack you, they decided to let Lou go." This made Jeff almost bolt up, stopping halfway, remembering the tube coming out of his arm. "He'll be out by tomorrow, and then you two will be able to be together again." Jeff's mother hugs Jeff and says her goodbyes. The next couple of weeks were those where Jeff was visited by his family. Then came the day where his bandages were to be removed. His family were all there to see it, what he would look like. As the doctors unwrapped the bandages from Jeff's face, everyone was on the edge of their seats. They waited until the last bandage holding the cover over his face was almost removed. "Let's hope for the best," said the doctor. He quickly pulls the cloth, letting the rest fall from Jeff's face. Jeff's mother screams at the sight of his face. Lou and Jeff's dad stare awe-struck at his face.
"What happened to my face?"
Jeff said. He rushed out of bed and ran to the bathroom. He looked in the mirror and saw the cause of the distress. His face. It... It's horrible. His lips were burnt a deep shade of red. His face was turned into a pure white color. And his hair singed from brown to black. He slowly put his hand to his face and had a sort of leathery feel to it now. He looked back at his family, then back at the mirror. Jeff, said Lou, it's not that bad.
Not that bad,
said Jeff.
It's perfect.
His family were equally surprised. Jeff started laughing uncontrollably. His parents noticed that his left eye and hand were twitching. Jeff, are you okay?
Okay? I never felt more happy. Look at me. This face goes perfectly with me.
He couldn't stop laughing. He stroked his face, feeling it, looking at it in the mirror. What caused this? Well, you may recall when Jeff was fighting Randy, something in his mind, his sanity, snapped. Now he was left a crazy killing machine. That is, his parents didn't know. Doctor, said Jeff's mom, is my son all right, in the head? Oh, yes. This behavior is typical for patients that have taken very large amounts of painkillers. If his behavior doesn't change in a few weeks, bring him back here and we'll give him a psychological test. Sorry, I've been watching a lot of Stephen He as well. Oh, thank you, doctor. Jeff's mother went over to Jeff. Jeff, sweetie, it's time to go. Jeff looks away from the mirror, his face still formed into a crazy smile.
Okay, Mommy.
His mother took him by the shoulder and took him to get his clothes. This is what came in, said the lady at the desk. Jeff's mom looked down to see the black dress pants and white hoodie her son wore. Now they were clean of blood and now stitched together. Jeff's mother led him to his room and made him put his clothes on because, he was walking around the hospital naked. Not really, hospital gown probably. Then they left, not knowing that this was their final day of life. Later that night, Jeff's mother woke to a sound coming from the bathroom. It sounded as if someone was crying. She slowly walked over to see what it was. When she looked into the bathroom, she saw a horrendous sight. Jeff had taken a knife and carved a smile into his cheeks. Jeff, what are you doing? Asked his mother. Jeff looked to his mother.
I couldn't keep smiling, Mommy. It hurt. After a while, now I can smile forever. Jeff's mother noticed his eyes, ringed in black.
Sorry, he never ended the parenthesis, so I have to keep talking like Cartman till the next ones. Jeff, your eyes. His eyes were seemingly never closing.
I couldn't see my face. I got tired and my eyes started to close. I burned out the eyelids so I could forever see myself, my new face.
Jeff's mother slowly started to back away, seeing that her son was going insane.
What's wrong, Mommy? Aren't I beautiful?
Yeah, son, she said. I'm sorry. I broke myself by continuing to speak in a southern accent. Let me try that again. Yeah, son, she said. Yes, you are. Let me go get Daddy so he can see your face. She ran into the room and shook Jeff's dad from his sleep. Honey, get the gun, we... ... She stopped as she saw Jeff in the doorway holding a knife.
Mommy, you lied.
That was the last thing they hear as Jeff rushes them with the knife, gutting both of them. His brother Lou woke up, startled by some noise. He didn't hear anything else, so he just shut his eyes and tried to go back to sleep. As he was on the border of slumber, he got the strangest feeling that someone was watching him. He looked up before Jeff's hand covered his mouth. He slowly raised the knife, ready to plunge it into Lou, who thrashed here and there, trying to escape Jeff's grip. Shh, Jeff said. Just go to sleep. Hey, we actually got a celebration for finishing and reading this dog water. Nice. Well, thank you. Thank you, Crimson Chaos, for celebrating the fact that I finished reading it. Or maybe that's just a Wattpad thing. I don't know. Either way. Oh boy. It's just as terrible as I remember. And that's just because we have here so much dumb nonsense that was going on in this story. Mostly the changing tense, but also the fact that apparently Jeff can fight like an anime protagonist, and when he get that feeling, he needs violent healing. You know. Didn't y'all feel that way when you were 12? At least I think they said they were 12. I don't remember. The story, like all the other stories that I read that are brain rot, tend to rot my brain. So I can't really quite remember if they said they were 12 or not, but I think so. I don't know. But yeah. Also, apparently, Randy... Oh, I'm mad at myself, y'all. There was a very easy joke I could have made, and it was to voice Randy like Macho Man Randy Savage. Hold on, I'm going to go back and reread some of this. All right, hang on. I'll reread this section because as with Jeff with Randy voiced like Macho Man Randy Savage. Hang on. Right. As Jeff tries to stand, he is kicked down to the ground. Randy repeatedly starts kicking Jeff until he starts to cough up blood. Come on, Jeff, fight me. He picks up Jeff and throws him into the kitchen. Randy sees a bottle of vodka on the counter and smashes the glass over Jeff's head. Fight! He throws Jeff back into the living room. Come on, Jeff, look at me. Don't you ever look at me during. I've made that joke twice. He glances up, his face riddled with blood. I was the one who got your brother sent to JDC. Now you're just going to sit there and let him rot for a whole year. You should be ashamed, brother. Okay. I just needed to indulge myself there for a sec, but... Yeah, I should have read all of Randy's lines like Macho Man Randy Savage. I already was doing Eric Cart... There's an image for you. Eric Cartman versus Macho Man Randy Savage. Someone draw that. Whoever watches this in the future, please draw that. Macho Man Randy Savage versus Eric Cartman. Has to look like anime too. Anyway, we're going to move on and we're going to read Abandoned by Didney. To preface, I actually used to think this story was kind of creepy because it has a good idea behind it, but there's a few things that kind of ruin the experience of the story for me. You'll see why, but much like Jeff the Killer, I remember this story having like bad tense. It was like bad tense, and I don't know. It just feels pretentious at times. You'll see what I mean. All right. Abandoned by Didney by Slime Beast. Some of you may have heard that the Didney Corporation is responsible for at least one real, quote, live ghost town. Disney built the quote Treasure Island end quote resort in Baker's Bay in the Bahamas. It didn't start out as a ghost town. Disney's cruise ships would actually stop at the resort and leave tourists there to relax in luxury. This is a fact. Look it up, m'lady. Not really. Disney blew a little over $30 million on the place. Yes. Wait. Disney blew $30 million on the place. ... Yes. $30 million. Then they abandoned it. Roll credits. Disney blamed the shallow waters, parenthesis, too shallow for their ships to safely operate, end parenthesis, and there was even blame cast on the workers, saying that since they were from the Bahamas, they were too lazy to work a regular schedule. That's where the factual nature of their story ends. It wasn't because of sand, and it obviously wasn't because, quote, foreigners are lazy, end quote. Both are convenient excuses. No. I sincerely doubt those reasons were legitimate. Why don't I buy the official story? Because of Mowgli's Palace. Near the beachside of Emerald Isle in North Carolina, Disney began construction of Mowgli's Palace in the late 1990s. The concept was a jungle-themed resort with a large, you guessed it, palace in the center of the whole thing. If you're unfamiliar with the character of Mowgli, then you might remember the story The Jungle Book. If you haven't seen it anywhere else, you'd know it as the Disney cartoon from decades past. Mowgli is an abandoned child in the jungle, essentially raised by animals and simultaneously threatened/pursued by other animals. Mowgli's Palace was a controversial undertaking from the start. Disney brought up a ton of high-priced land for the project, and there was actually a scandal surrounding some of the purchases. The local government claimed, quote, eminent domain, end quote, on people's homes, then turned around and sold the properties to Disney. At one point, a home that had just been constructed was immediately condemned with little to no explanation. The land grabbed by the government was supposedly The land grabbed by the government was supposedly for some fictional highway project. Knowing full well what was going on, people started calling it Mickey Mouse Highway. Then there was the concept art. A group of stuffed shirts from Disney Co. actually held a city meeting. They intended to sell everyone on how lucrative the project was going to be for everyone. When they showed the concept art, this gigantic Indian palace, surrounded by jungle, staffed with men and women in loincloths and tribal gear, well, suffice to say, everyone flipped their shit. We're talking about a large Indian palace, jungle, and loincloths, not only in the center of a relatively wealth area, but also a somewhat xenophobic area of the southern USA. It was a questionable mix at that point in history. And in this point in history. One member of the crowd tried to storm the stage, but he was quickly subdued by security, after he managed to break one of the presentation boards over his knee. Disney took that community and essentially broke it over its knee as well. The houses were razed, the land was cleared, there wasn't a damned thing anyone could do or say about it. Local TV and newspapers were against the resort at the beginning. But some insane connection between Disney's media holdings and the local venues came into play, and their opinions turned on a dime. So anyway, Treasure Island, the Bahamas, Disney sunk those millions in and then split. The same thing happened with Mowgli's Palace. Construction was complete, visitors actually stayed at the resort, surrounding communities were flooded with traffic and the usual annoyances associated with the influx of lost and irate tourists. Then it all just stopped. Disney shut it down and nobody knew what the hell to think. But they were pretty happy about it. Disney's loss was Pretty hilarious and a wonderful to a large group of folks who didn't want this in the first place. T. I honestly didn't give the place another thought since hearing it closed over a decade ago. I live maybe 4 hours from Emerald Isle, so I really only heard the rumblings and didn't experience any of it firsthand. Then I read this article from someone who explored the Treasure Island resort and posted a whole blog about the crazy shit he found there. Stuff just ... left behind. Things smashed, defaced, probably ruined by the disgruntled former employees who had lost their jobs. Hell, the locals from all around probably had a hand in wrecking that place. My phone's not on Do Not Disturb. Hang on. I swear I'm a professional. Where was I? I'll just start over. Hell, the locals from all around had probably had a hand in wrecking that place. People there felt just as angry about Treasure Island as folks here did about Mowgli's Palace. Plus, there were rumors that Disney had released their aquarium, quote, stock, end quote, into the local waters when they closed. ... including sharks. Who wouldn't want to take a few swings at some merchandise after that? Well, what I'm getting at is that there's... Wait. Well, what I'm getting at is that this blog about Treasure Island got me thinking. Even though many years had passed since its closing, I figured it might be cool to do some urban exploration at Mowgli's Palace. Take some photos, write about my experiences, and probably see if there's anything I could take home as a memento. I'm not going to say I wasted no time in getting there, because honestly, it took me another year after I first found out that... Yeah, hang on. Because it honestly took me another year after I first found that Treasure Island article to get around to going up to Emerald Isle. Over the course of that year, I did a lot of research on the Palace Resort, ... or rather, I tried to. Naturally, no official Disney site or resource made any mention of the palace that had been scrubbed clean. Wait, that had been scrubbed clean. Even odder, however, is that nobody before myself had apparently thought to blog about the place or even post a photo. None of the local TV or newspaper sites had one word about the place, though that was to be expected since they all swung Disney's way. They wouldn't be out there lauding their embarrassment, you know? Recently, I learned that corporations can actually ask Google, for example, to remove links from search results, ... basically for no good reason. Looking back, it's probably not that nobody spoke of the resort, but rather their words were made inaccessible. So in the end, I could barely find the place. All I had to go on was an old as hell map I'd received in the mail back in the 90s. It was a promotional item sent out to people who had recently been to Disney World. And I guess since I had been there in the late 80s, that was, quote, recent, unquote. I didn't really hang on to it. It just got shoved in with my books and comics from my childhood. I'd only remembered it months into my research, and even then it took me another few weeks to locate the storage bin my parents had shoved it all into. But I did find it. Locals were no help, as most were transplants who had moved to the beach in recent years, ... or old residents who sneered at me and made rude gestures the second I managed to say, "Where would I find Mowgli's?" The drive took me through an inordinately long corridor of overgrowth. Tropical plants that had run rampant and overpopulated the area mixed with the native species of flora that actually belonged there and had tried to reclaim the land. I was in awe when I reached the front gates of the resort. Tremendous, monolithic wooden gates whose supports to either side looked like they must have been cut from giant sequoias. The gate itself had been gouged in several places by woodpeckers and eaten away at the base by burrowing insects. Hanging on the gate was a sheet of metal. Some random scrap with hand-painted letters scrawled in black. Abandoned by Disney. Clearly the handiwork of some past local or an employee who wanted to make some small protest. The gates were open enough to walk through, but not drive, so grabbing my digital camera and the map, whose flip side showed a layout of the resort, I set off on foot. The inner grounds of the palace were just as overgrown as the entryway. Palm trees stood untended and ragged among piles of their own coconuts. Banana plants similarly stood in their own stinking, bug-riddled refuse. There was this sort of clash between order and chaos, as carefully planted rows of perennial flowers mixed with obnoxious tall weeds and stinking blackened mushrooms. All that remained of any outdoor structures were broken, rotting wood and various charred bits of unidentifiable material. What was most likely an information booth or an outdoor bar was now simply a pile of assorted debris chopped up by past vandalism and ravaged by weather. The most interesting thing on the grounds was a statue of Baloo, a friendly bear from the Jungle Book, which stood in a sort of courtyard in front of the main building. He was frozen in a jovial wave toward no one, staring into empty space with a silly, toothy grin as bird shit covered the whole swathes of his fur, and vines ensnared his platform. I approached the main building, the palace, only to find the outside of the building covered in graffiti where the original paint hadn't peeled and chipped away. The front doors weren't just open, they had been taken off their hinges and were stolen. Above the doors, or the gaping maw where they had been, someone had once again painted, "Abandoned by Disney." I wish I could tell you about all the awesome stuff I saw inside the palace. Forgotten statues, abandoned cash registers, a full-fledged secret society of homeless bums. ... But no. Inside the building was so stark, so bare, that I actually think people had stolen the molding off the walls. Anything that was too big to steal, counters, desks, fake trees, they were all resting amid this empty echo chamber that excuse me. Counters, desks, giant fake trees, ... They were all resting amid this empty echo chamber that amplified my every step like a slow rat-a-tat of a machine gun. I checked the floor plan and headed to all the locations that might seem in any way interesting. The kitchen, as you'd imagine, ... An industrial food prep area with all the appliances in space, no expenses spared. Every glass surface was broken, every door knocked off its hinges, every metal surface kicked and dented. The entire place smelled like very old piss. The huge freezer, not even remotely cool now, had row upon row of empty shelf space. Hooks hung from the ceiling, probably for hanging cuts of meat, and as I stood inside for a moment, I noticed they were swinging. Each hook swung in a random direction, but their movements were slow and small that it was almost impossible to see. I figured it had been caused by my footsteps, so I stopped one from swinging by clutching it in my fist, then carefully letting it go. But within seconds, it started to swing once more. The bathrooms were much in the same state as the rest of the place. Just like the Treasure Island resort, someone had methodically smashed each porcelain commode with coconuts and other implements. There was about a half-inch of rancid, stinking, stagnant water on the floor, so I didn't stay in there for very long. What's odd is that the toilets in the sinks and the bidets in the ladies' room, yes, I went there, in parenthesis, all dripped, leaked, or just ran freely. It seemed to me that they should have shut the water off long ago. There were plenty of empty rooms in the resort, but naturally, I didn't have time to look through them all. The few I did peer into were similarly wrecked, and I didn't expect to find anything there. I thought there was actually a television or a radio in one room, as I really think I heard a quiet conversation coming out. Though it was like a whisper, probably my own breathing echoing in the silence, or just another case of the sound of flowing water playing tricks on the mind, this is what it sounded like. I didn't believe it. Parenthesis short unknown reply. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Your father told you. Unknown reply, or possibly just weeping. I know, that sounds ridiculous. I am just telling you what I experienced. Why I thought there might have been something running in that room, or worse, some vagrants who had holed up there and probably would have knifed me. At the front of the doors of the palace again, I figured I hadn't found anything of note and had wasted the trip up. As I looked out the door, I noticed something interesting in the courtyard that I had apparently missed. Something that would give me at least one thing to show for all of my trouble, even if it was just a photograph. There is a lifelike statue of a python, maybe 80 feet long, coiled up and sunning itself on a pedestal right in the center of the area. It was almost time for the sun to start setting, so the light fell onto the object in the perfect way for a photograph. I approached the python and snapped a photo. Then I stood on my toes and snapped another. I moved closer to get the detail of its face. Slowly, casually, the python lifted its head, looked directly into my eyes, turned and slithered off the pedestal across the grass and into the trees. All 80 feet of it, its headlong disappeared into the woods before its tail even left the sunning spot. Disney had released all their exotic animals onto the grounds. Right there on my floor plan map was the reptile house. I should have known. I'd read about the sharks at Treasure Isle. I should have known they'd done this. I was dumbfounded. Just utterly stupefied. My mouth must have been hanging open for the longest time before I came back down to earth and snapped it shut. I blinked a few times and backed away from where the snake had been, back towards the palace. Even though it was totally gone, I still wasn't taking any chances and backed my way into the building. It took a few deep breaths and slaps to my own face to get myself right in the head again after that. I looked for a place to sit down as my legs were feeling a bit like jelly at this point. Of course, there was no place to sit down unless I wanted to recline in the broken glass and dead leaf carpet, or haul myself up onto a desk of questionably reliability. The writer of the story is a Redditor. Anyway, I had seen some stairs near the palace's lobby and decided to go have a seat there until I felt better. The staircase was far enough from the front building to be relatively clean, save for a startling accumulation of dust. I pulled a wedge of metal off the wall, once again painted with the "abandoned by Disney" motto, in quotes, I had become accustomed to. I placed the wedge on the stairs and sat on it to keep at least somewhat clean. The stairway led downward, below ground level. Using my camera flash as a sort of improvised flashlight, I could see that the staircase ended in a metal mesh door with a padlock. A sign on the door, ... a real sign, ... read, "Mascots only, thank you." This perked up my spirits a little bit for two reasons. One, a mascots only area would have definitely had some interesting stuff back in the day, ... Two, the padlock was still in place. Nobody had gone down there. Not the vandals, not the looters, nobody. This was the one place I could actually explore, in quotes, and perhaps find something interesting to photograph or wantonly steal. I had come to the palace essentially agreeing with myself that it was okay to take anything I wanted because, hey, quote, abandoned, end quote. It didn't take much to bust the lock. Well, actually, that's wrong. It didn't take much to bust the metal plate on the wall that the padlock was hooked to. Time and decay had done most of the work for me, and I was able to bend the metal plate enough to pull the screws out of the wall. Something nobody else had apparently thought of or hadn't been able to do at the time. The mascots only area was a startling and very welcomed change from the rest of the building I'd seen. For one, every second or third fluorescent light overhead was illuminated, even though they flickered and faded randomly. Also, nothing had been stolen or broken, even if age and exposure was definitely taking their toll. Tables had notepads, pens, and there were clocks, ... even a punch-in clock on the wall, complete with filled-out time cards. Chairs were scattered around, and there was even a small break room with an old static-filled television and long rotted-out food and drink on the counters. It was like one of those post-apocalypse movies where everything is left in a state of evacuation. As I walked the maze-like sub-basement hallways of the mascot-only area, the sights just became more and more interesting. As I went further, desks and tables were knocked over, papers scattered and almost melded with the damp floor. And a large carpet of mold was slowly overtaking the real rotting crimson floor covering. Everything was just sort of squishy. Anything wood disintegrated into mush when I applied even the least amount of force. And clothing items hanging on the hooks in one of the rooms simply fell to moist threads if I tried to unhook them. One thing that annoyed me was that the light was becoming more and more sparse and unreliable as I went further into the dank, suffocating depths of the palace. Eventually, I reached a black and yellow striped door with the words, Character Prep 1 stenciled on it. The door wouldn't open at first. I figured this was probably where the costumes were kept, and I definitely wanted a photograph of that twisted, stinking mess. Try as I might, whatever angle or trick I tried, the door wouldn't budge. That is, until I gave up and started to walk away. That was when there was a slight popping sound and the door creaked open slowly. Inside, the room was completely dark, pitch black. I used the camera flash to look for a light switch on the wall by the door, but there was nothing. As I made my search, I was jarred out of my sense of excitement by a loud electrical buzz. Rows of lights overhead suddenly flashed to life, flickering and fading in and out like the rest I had passed. Sorry if I keep stumbling over my own words. It took a second for my eyes to adjust, and it seemed like the light was going to just keep getting brighter until all the bulbs exploded. But just when I thought it would reach that critical stage, the lights dimmed a bit and steadied. The room was exactly how I had pictured it. Various Disney costumes hung on the walls, fully put together like strange cartoon cadavers hung from invisible nooses. There was an entire rack of loincloths and native clothes on hangers near the back, or toward the back, I should say. What I found odd and what I wanted to photograph right away was a Mickey Mouse costume in the center of the room. Unlike the other costumes, it was lying on its back in the center of the floor like a murder victim. The fur on the costume was rotten and shedding, creating bare patches. What was even odder, however, was the coloring of the costume. It was like a photo negative of the actual Mickey Mouse. Black where he should be white, and white where he should be black. Normally red overalls were a light blue. The sight was off-putting enough that I actually put off photographing the thing until last. I took a picture of the costumes hanging on the walls, upward angles, downward angles, side shots to show the entire row of frozen, putrid cartoon faces, some with plastic eyes missing. Then I decided to stage a shot. Just one of the bedraggled character heads on the slick, grimy floor. I reached for the headpiece of a Donald Duck costume and carefully removed it so the thing wouldn't fall apart in my hands. As I looked into the face of the wide-eyed, moldering head, a loud clattering sound made me jump with fright. I looked down at my feet, and between my shoes was a human skull. It had fallen out of the mascot and shattered into pieces at my feet. Excuse me. I'll save it for the end. Only the empty face and lower jaw remained, staring up at me. I dropped the duck head immediately, and as you'd expect, moved for the door. As I stood in the doorway, I looked back to the skull on the floor. I had to take a picture of it, you know. I had to. For any number of reasons that might seem silly, but only if you don't think it through. I'd need proof of what happened, especially if Disney were going to somehow make this go away. I had no doubt in my mind, right from the start, that even if it was just gross negligence, Disney was responsible for this. And now here's where the whole story goes from like moderately interesting to jumping the shark. That's when Mickey, that photo negative, opposite Mickey in the middle of the floor, started to get up. First sitting up, then climbing to its feet, The Mickey Mouse costume, ... or whoever was inside of it, stood there at the center of the room, its fake face just staring directly at me as I mumbled, "No," over and over. Wait, no, ... over and over and over, ... with shaking hands, a violently thrashing heart, and legs that had once again turned to jelly. I managed to lift the camera and aim it at the opposite creature, now quietly sizing me up. The digital camera's screen displayed only dead pixels in the shape of the thing. It was a perfect silhouette of the Mickey costume. As the camera moved in my unsteady hands, the dead pixels spread, marring the screen wherever Mickey's outline moved to. Then the camera died, went blank and quiet and ... broken. I raised my eyes once again to the Mickey Mouse costume. "Hey," it said in a hushed, perverted, perfectly executed Mickey Mouse voice. "Want to see my head come off, huh?" It started to pull at its own head, working its clumsy, glove-clad fingers around its neck with clawing, impatient movements similar to a wounded man trying to pull himself free of a predator's jaws, ... as it worked its digits into its neck, ... so much blood, ... so much thick, chunky, yellow blood, ... couldn't have been chicken noodle soup, ... Sorry, I had to. I turned away as I heard a sickening tearing of cloth and flesh, ... Only cared about getting away. Above the doorway out of this room, I saw the final message clawed into the metal with bone or fingernails. Abandoned by God. I never got the pictures out of the camera. I never wrote the blog entry about it after I ran from that place, fled for my sanity, if not for my very life. I knew why Didney didn't want anyone to know about this place. They didn't want anyone like me getting in. They didn't want anything like that getting out. Now, in case you're wondering what that photo negative Mickey looked like, let me pull up a picture of it. Yeah, oh God. Hang on. I'll find one. I'll find a good one. Don't you worry. Open image in a new tab, please. Yeah, that. That's what it's supposed to look like. Which is to say it looks dumb. Like I said, when I was a lot younger, and I'll just leave the image up while I talk a little bit about this story. When I was a much younger program, still getting configured into the lovely specimen you see before you today, I actually thought that this story was kind of creepy. It legitimately was a little bit weird and off-putting, and yeah, it creeped me out. But I revisited it, like, I want to say a decade ago. I don't remember how long it's been, but a long time ago I revisited the story, read it again, realized that it was trash. And it's not trash because the whole thing is like totally poorly written. It's trash because it takes an idea that it sets up so well and then ruins it. Like if Slime Beast had just kept the atmosphere and like just documenting of like old abandoned places, honestly, he kind of touches on the whole liminal space thing even before liminal space was officially kind of a thing. Maybe, I don't know. I should look up when liminal space was compared to when Slime Beast wrote this story, but you get my point. If he had just stuck to that and probably cut out like half of the edgy language in there, I feel like this story would have been legitimately kind of creepy, like actually creepy. Because there's something about exploring old abandoned places that just by itself is terrifying. And I mean, he kind of touched on it too in the story in a way that I thought was, well, it could have been done better, but I'm glad he touched on it. But in the spot where he's like, yeah, well, there could be homeless people in here where I could get knifed. Like, yeah. Yeah, that touches on it. But you could have said like, said that there were like transients or something else going on. Who knows? But also, this, like the very last part of it, and I've heard other people who've read this story say this too, it feels like he started out with this as like a school project and then ended up just sort of winging it at the end because he didn't know how to end the story or just was running out of time in writing it, so he had to like BS an ending before he could turn in the paperwork. I know that sounds mean, but that's kind of how I feel about this story. It's good, but it's not like, it's not, well, it's not good. I'll just be honest with myself. It's not good, but it's interesting. And I think that's what kind of stings the most, is that it should have just ended on should have ended on a note where it was like a whole collection of like pictures and like stuff from the Disney resort that he visited, instead of it being like a murder conspiracy negative Mickey Mouse looking thing. Because when I revisited the story and I saw this picture, or there was a picture like it, let me see if I can find the picture like it, because the picture like it is doofy. Yeah, this was the original picture, I think. Also, I need to look at this because that looks like trash. Yeah, this is the original picture. Like, when I saw this, I was like, really? Like, back in the day, I thought it was a little bit creepy. Nowadays, I just think, wow, dude, you spent so long in Blender trying to make that look cool, huh? Also, just negative mouse. Hang on. What? Do what now? Clearly, there's mustard falling from the head. This is a really well done model. What the heck? Okay, what? The model is actually really cool. Good job, whoever did this. Mark's fan. That's kind of cool, actually. Even though the story it comes from is bad. Anyway, I do believe that these two creepy poopsas have a really interesting place in like internet spooky spaghetti history, but only because they were so prevalent back in the day and they were so, I don't know, interesting. Or at least this one was. Jeff the Killer was always trash. Even when I first read it, I thought, man, what? Do what now? There's a jump scare. All right, fair enough. Anyway, I will say though, if you want a really good, like, interestingly artsy and a little unsettling version of Mickey Mouse, go look at Epic Mickey. Or there was like a Mickey Mouse game where he uses a paintbrush. I don't remember if it's called Epic Mickey or something else. But he goes through like the detritus of all of the Disney stuff that's come before. And it's kind of like him walking around the wasteland of what Disney used to be. That actually was kind of interesting and profound. What this felt like was someone got up from their computer from Reddit for a little while to go be a tourist. And then made something up to try and get up votes. You know. So it wasn't very good. But that's okay. I love trash. And so trash is what I shall read. Gonna scooch myself back into the center. And we're gonna... And I am gonna end it here. But... Oh man, why do I keep breaking stuff? I keep breaking things, guys. Sorry, it's just because I got too spooked. That's what happens when you get too spooked by the spooky spaghetti. Anyway, what I was going to say is that tomorrow I'll be streaming like normal. But also, whenever I just sort of feel like it, I think I'll just hop on stream and do the thing. You know? Because I like doing this and I really want to actually make this a thing. Because I'm enjoying myself quite a bit, actually. But I think that's going to do it for me today. This has been Byte the Robot. Thank you for joining me today. And I'll see y'all tomorrow. And whenever I feel like hopping on. Peace.